Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also catch us online at katb.org, and don't forget to look us up on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio, and be sure to check us out on iTunes. You can now download our podcast by searching for Living Well. My name is Cammie and I'm always joined by my lovely co-host Betty.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't hide over in the corner over there, Betty. Everybody's got to know you're still here, going strong.
I am trying to hide.
You are trying to hide, aren't you?
I'm trying to hide today.
So last week we left off talking a little bit about the turquoise table. Betty and I are both reading a book by Kristen Schnell. Yes, I keep getting that last name. I want to say Schnell because I know somebody with that last name.
It could be Schnell.
So I've been spending more time in my front yard a little bit lately, just trying to be a little bit more observant of the community and the neighborhood and just kind of trying to build up getting that table out there and getting people to surround. How are you doing on that?
I am loving the book. I think I'm up to chapter 7. But my favorite character has become Ludmilla, she's 85-year-old woman.
Yes.
That would bring people into her home, make cookies, and just chat with them.
Yes.
That's all that she did.
So the challenge is out there. We hope you guys are at least checking out that book and joining us and reading through that just to find community around you and learn how to create that, not be so dependent on the church to create that for you, but be out there and create that yourself to be the hands and feet of Jesus and have that impact in your own community. So,
and it doesn't have to be fancy.
That's correct.
Not at all.
Yes.
Just an invite and maybe a glass of ice water, if nothing else.
Very simple.
Especially on days like yesterday.
Yes.
When it was so warm.
Absolutely. So we have got an amazing show prepared for you guys today. We have some very important guests in the studio who are just dear friends of mine.
I wish we could get pictures right now.
I know it. They are just hams, aren't they?
Yes.
See, I just wonder if other people get to see this side of them. They're so much
Maybe
fun.
we could secretly video them right now.
Let's do some Facebook Live video. We want to welcome Pastor Glen and Debbie Clary to the studio today. He is not only assistant pastor at the Anchorage Baptist Temple, but they also lead a Sunday school class called Marriage Matters. He also heads up some marriage seminars as well as leads Financial Peace University seminars here on the campus at Anchorage Baptist Temple. So we're going to dive in and just talk about all things marriage related, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to ask them some questions about their marriage as well. And so we hope that you guys will just stay tuned for the next 25 minutes or so and just get some words of wisdom from Pastor Glen and Debbie Clary. Welcome to Living Well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cammie and Betty, hiding over there in the corner. It's good to have you ladies here with us because we wouldn't know what to do without you.
You're going to love this.
Yes, we're going to have some fun. So to get us started today, why don't you guys just, one of you, I know Debbie's dying to talk, so we want to give her every opportunity to do that. Either one of you, really. Just kind of give us the 411 on you guys, a little bit about how long you've been in Alaska, your family, and just kind of that basic information.
You want me to do it? Okay.
Sure.
We came to Alaska in 1979, February of 1979, so about 38 years or so. We've been married it'll be 42 years this November. We have 3 grown children. We have 4 grandchildren, 1 more on the way. And
that's exciting.
That's a start.
Yeah, that's a start.
Your family's growing and growing.
It is.
In the best way possible.
Yes.
So how did you guys end up in Alaska?
Well, we came up here to be the youth pastor here at the Anchorage Baptist Temple. My degree is actually in youth ministry, and I started there, and then I evolved into the adult ministries, and eventually we started this class called Marriage Matters, and we've been doing that for, 15 years, something like that. So
I had no idea you were the youth pastor.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
For how many years did you do that?
Oh, I don't know, 3 or 4. And then I went into the pastor's class and helped with the adult ministries and stuff like that.
Okay, we want to hear the story about how you guys met.
How we met. Oh, it's very interesting. Do you want to do it? Okay.
Don't spare any details.
We were at Bible college, and it was actually in the church that we were attending, Cherry Street Baptist Church in Springfield, Missouri. And he saw me singing in the choir. And so that's when he wanted, he saw me and he said he wanted to date me. And that's how we met. And then we started dating from then. But let him tell his side of the story.
Yeah, how we met is not as exciting as how we stayed together after we met.
Oh, okay. That's the real story.
That's the story you need to ask Debbie about.
That's the background.
How we met was I did see her singing or practicing in the choir after church on a Wednesday night, and I knew as soon as I saw her, I said she looked so angelic. And she is an angel because she's always up in the air harping about something.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But no, I did see her, and I said, I don't know, it was the Lord and the Holy Spirit speaking to me and said, that's the woman you're going to marry. And after that, I had some of her girlfriends introduced her to me and set us up a little bit in group dates. And I'll let her take it from here because this is the exciting part of the story.
What I say is the Lord didn't tell me right away that he was the one for me. Let's
She
just
doesn't
put
listen
it that
to him
way.
as well as I do.
I didn't get the message.
Didn't get the same memo, huh?
So we did start dating, but it was weird because I didn't really look at him as like a boyfriend or something. We just started out as friends. I had a great time with him. We had a lot of fun together, but it was nothing beyond that. Well, I could see that I could tell, I think he's a little more interested in me than I am in him. So I said, well, I think we should date other people. I really don't. I think you're getting too serious too fast.
Brokenhearted.
I know. I broke his heart. So we did.
Shattered.
We started dating other people, but then I saw him going out with other girls, and I'm like,
Uh-oh.
I said, I think I really will like him. I think I'd really rather date him than these other guys I'm dating. So
what I'm learning is you like a challenge,
yeah,
Debbie.
I guess so.
So did you go back and ask him out?
I don't
No,
think
no,
so.
she didn't. What happened was I pulled up to the college where she was staying at the college. I lived in the town there with my parents. And I was dating another girl at the time and took her out on a date that night. And I knew she was going to be back at that college because she had to be in the dorms. And her date dropped her off. And as she was walking back, I pulled up with my date and got my date out and gave her a kiss, and then that's when the jealousy.
That's when it started.
Set in,
So but you must have asked me out again.
I did. I absolutely did.
Because I don't remember
I
asking
only
you.
dated that girl to get you jealous. That's it.
Oh, it worked.
It was all part of the plan.
It worked.
All
Debbie.
part of the plan.
Wow, he worked hard for you, Debbie.
Yeah. So then when we got back together and started dating, then it went.
And I don't blame her because I was dorky looking. I didn't bring much to the table as far as intelligence, and I didn't have a lot of wealth and all that stuff. But eventually that didn't matter because we fell in love, and now most of it's history.
Yep.
What a great story.
I think it's
I
great.
love it.
I love it. Did you go to her parents and talk to them?
Oh, now that's another story. Okay. Now here
We're going to
her
need
dad-
2 shows, Betty.
Her dad is an independent, fundamental Baptist preacher living in South Carolina.
Oh,
okay,
no.
So her mom and dad and her brothers and sisters all grew up there, and so they're there, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, being a youth pastor there and working in construction, and she's in South Carolina, and we're kind of planning our wedding and all that. So I decided to hop on a motorcycle. And I put on this helmet and these leathers and this motorcycle, and I drive halfway across the country, and I pull up into their driveway. And as soon as I pull up, of course, I rev the motorcycle up, And her dad, I was told later, said, "Who in the world's this hoodlum in my driveway?" And her mom, being so gracious, and God bless her because she's in heaven today. Lost her about a year ago, and she's in heaven today. But she was so kind and considerate, and just brought me into the family. But I can just remember that first impression I made upon them as I drove up into their driveway on my motorcycle. So.
That was the first time you met him, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you were already planning your wedding, and he had not met them?
Right. He talked to him on the phone.
Right.
But he had not met him yet.
Yeah,
so did you?
I had got his permission on the phone to ask for her hand in marriage.
Well, good. That was very good of you to do that.
So was it a thing in those years to ask parents to date a young lady or just for marriage?
I think just for marriage.
Just
I don't
for
remember
marriage.
Asking to date.
But you bring up a great point, Cammie, and I think parents ought to be involved in that aspect of their children's lives. And I see so many times that the men want to go and ask the girl's dad for their hand in marriage, but yet they don't ask them for everything else that they might be doing in the dating scene. And I think that's something that we ought to address in our society and our culture a little bit more.
I would have to agree with that. Just as a parent of a teenage girl, I would like that idea. So let's implement it tomorrow.
Exactly.
So when you all were dating, were you in a group dating, or did you date alone?
We did both, but mostly in college. We were in a traveling play together from our college group, and so we went across the country in this big old yellow bus, and so most of our dates was on that during that time, and then she was, of course, halfway across the country, and I was in Nashville, so we didn't do too much dating while we were planning the wedding and everything. So we had 1 or 2 or 3 independent dates, but most of them were with college friends and all that, and friends.
So, Debbie, you knew in advance that you were going to be marrying a pastor?
Oh, yes. Yes, I knew.
Well, explain that. I mean,
Why? Before you go there, I want to hear about the proposal. We got to get all these details, and then we'll let them share with us a little bit what happened after that. So tell us, Pastor Glen, about the proposal.
There wasn't anything ultra romantic about the proposal. We were coming out of, my mom and dad lived there in Springfield, Missouri, and I had her over for dinner that night, and we were leaving the house, and I had to get her back to the dorm because they had what's called curfew, and all that. And so we were walking outside, and it had begun to snow. Occasionally it snows there in Missouri. So as we walked out the front door, I asked her on the porch there, I said, would you marry me, And she said yes, and so then I picked her up and carried her to the car. And so that was about all it was.
Yes. And then when I got back to the dorm, the thing was, if a girl got engaged, they threw you in the shower.
Oh, really?
So I got back to the dorm as soon as they just throw you in the shower just the way you are as you come in. So I got thrown in the shower when I got back.
Oh my goodness! So were you expecting it, Debbie, or did it catch you off guard?
I was expecting it, but I didn't know when it was going to happen. And I think I was a little caught off guard that it had happened then. But we'd talked about getting married, but we hadn't really, officially said we were going to get married.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a sweet story.
Yeah. It is very sweet. I want to ask you guys this too. Were you guys both raised and taught, healthy boundaries when dating? And did you kind of come into your dating relationship with that wisdom already, or how did you guys navigate that as a dating couple?
Well, I was raised in a pastor's family, and that's why she asked the question about what, and knew that I was going to marry a pastor, and I knew that he was going to Bible college to be, into the ministry, even when we were dating. So I knew that. But being raised in a pastor's home, I kind of, my dad was, like he said, was very strict fundamentalist Baptist preacher. And so we had very strict guidelines. I was brought up that way.
Of course, I come from a dysfunctional family, and my mom and dad, finally divorced after years of fussing and fighting in the family and everything. And we were taught boundaries very early in life, and I'm so thankful for those boundaries when they took us to church in those years, because it did formulate our foundation, and especially in that area. My dad taught me to always treat a woman with respect, and you never raise a hand to a woman, and you always take care of her, Not that she's weaker, but that she's an equal and that she needs to be honored and taken care of.
Mm. So, Debbie, you mentioned that you knew that what you were getting into with marrying a man called to full-time ministry. So you knew what to expect, having been raised in a family where your dad served in that capacity.
Yes. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. Yes. My dad had been a pastor the whole time, that I was alive, and so yes, I knew what kind of sacrifice it took, what kind of time commitment. Yes, I was pretty aware.
And you still did it.
Yes, and I still did it. Exactly.
That's a great point, Betty.
Yeah, I didn't know any better.
But we had talked about it, too. We had discussed it, and I told her, I said, I'm going in the ministry, and I see what other ministers have to do, the time constraints that they have to put in, and sometimes they're not going to be there. So we discussed it. And we actually, in our wedding vows, included ministry vows to one another. Oh. And she supported me in those, and I supported her in what she would be left to do in my absence and not being there to some degree when I was in the ministry and that kind of thing.
And we exchanged Bibles.
Yeah. And
little Bibles at our wedding, too, as part of the ceremony. Yeah. And I actually had a Bible in my bouquet, too. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little white Bible in my bouquet.
Oh, that's beautiful. So take us beyond the wedding day and into those first couple years of marriage. What was difficult navigating those first years as a young married couple?
I was trying. I don't really remember. That's
or
terrible.
if nothing difficult, what was most surprising, about being a young married couple and now living together?
How good she looked naked. That was very surprising. That was great.
Where's that edit button?
Oh dear.
Hey, he said it. We get to leave it.
Probably the most surprising thing to him was I didn't know how to cook.
Yeah, her mother was a great cook. When I would visit her mom and dad, and she would just put out all kinds of food, and she knew how to bake, she knew how to cook, and of course they had a family of 7.
Yeah, there's 5 kids.
And so she did great, and I'm thinking, okay, so she's gonna know how to cook. And the big shocker for me was, being from South Carolina in the South, Debbie didn't know how to cook grits.
No.
That was the biggest shocker for me.
My parents are both Northerners. And even though we lived in the South then, we had lived in the North a lot. He'd had churches up in the North mostly. A few in the South. And so, yes, I did not know how to cook grits. I still don't know how to cook them to this
That was my next question.
Well, it's a good thing that wasn't part of his criteria.
Yeah.
Right.
Nah.
He didn't throw me out.
Yeah.
So who ended up doing the cooking? Did you learn?
I have learned. I am not a gourmet. He is more of a gourmet cook. He loves to do fancy things. I am just a very simple cook. I don't enjoy cooking, so just something simple, get it on the table, let's eat. But he likes to spend time and create fancy dishes, but that's not me.
That's cool, though. That's a good balance between
I
the
think
two.
so.
That works. So, Pastor Glen, I want you to tell us, because if I recall correctly, you didn't always intend to be a full-time pastor. Tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming a full-time pastor and fulfilling that calling.
Well, I was actually studying to be an architectural engineer in college, in my first year of college. During my high school years, I went to what they call VOTEC at the time, Vocational Training School, and spent half a day there my junior and senior year, and I was into drawing and architectural drawing then. I won third in the state of Missouri in architectural drawing and a scholarship with that, and went to Southwest Missouri State University and was studying there. And then it was in that first semester that I really felt the call of the Lord on my life and said, listen, you can do this for the rest of your life and bend over a drafting table for the rest of your life and not have an impact on people, or you can take your life and multiply it in many others by serving me. And just that thought went through my mind and my heart, and so that's when I surrendered to the Lord to full-time ministry. I didn't really know what point yet or what particular ministry, but I did surrender, and then I changed my major in college to Baptist Bible College there in Springfield, Missouri, and started studying there for the ministry.
Wow. So when you were kind of making that decision to fulfill that and feeling God's leading in that, did you experience any opposition from anybody? Did anybody try to give you doubt, or how did you work through that?
Well, surprisingly, not too much from my pastor or my friends. My pastor gave me some great advice. He said, is there anything else you could do in life and be happy? He said, he asked me that question. I thought about it for a while. I said, I don't think so. He said, well, then you need to go in the ministry. And I think that's a great question for all men and women who face the decision or the calling into ministry. If there's anything else you can go on to do in life and you can go and be happy about doing it, you ought to go do that rather than ministry. Mm-hmm. But if that cannot be your life can't be fulfilled without it, then you ought to stay in it. My biggest opposition actually came from my mom and dad, believe it or not. They were so excited about me becoming an architect and being the first to graduate from college and go on and make bundles of money being an architect and all this, that they were so disappointed in me transitioning into being a minister that, they just said, you're going to starve to death. No one's ever going to know you. You're just going to be obsolete, and on and on and on and on it went. But in the face of that adversity, I even checked it out with the Lord, and He says, this is the calling I have for you, and you need to fulfill that calling. So I just remained faithful and continued to do what God wanted me to do.
Yeah, and that you have, absolutely.
Yes.
All these years later, still serving faithfully, both of you. You guys have 3 adult children. So
Correct.
we've talked about the marriage. We've kind of talked about your guys' past. Take us to those first years of having children. And did you plan on having 3? Or kind of tell us about that.
I don't
Part
know
of your
that we
guys'
ever
life.
planned on how many we wanted, did we?
No, we didn't ever discuss that.
They just came along.
They
We
just
did
came
have
along.
2.
Hey,
We
I
thought
like it.
we did think 2 was enough. We felt like that was good. But her dad always says, you never multiply, unless you have a third one. You have to replace yourself and then have another one or more.
So that was the reason for the third one.
Yeah.
No, the reason for the third one was Hawaii, a trip to Hawaii.
I have heard
true,
Hawaii
too.
does do that.
It does do that. Yes.
And now she's giving you 2 grandchildren.
That's
The
true.
second one is on its way,
Yes.
and we're so excited.
So, Debbie, was that difficult for you at all, raising the children as they were younger and having Glenn in full-time ministry and just the long hours that took?
I look at it this way. I think any other, like if you're married to a doctor, you're married to a dentist, you're married to a counselor or anybody else like that, you're going to have long hours too. Or in the military. You think about these military wives. I mean, their husbands are gone months on end. At least
Right.
he was home every night,
Yeah.
And so you just kind of learn to get along and do it. And, we had help from other ladies, in the church and stuff that had raised their kids that helped. But I don't know, you just do it.
I have young mothers ask me how I did it, how I raised the children, because my husband he worked long hours, and I said I just did it.
Yeah.
And they seem to be amazed by that
I
answer.
know, you just do it because
I had no other option,
right.
So we just raised them.
We just did it.
Probably the most difficult thing for Debbie with raising the kids was when I would come home late. She'd already had them calmed down, ready for bed, in their
That's
jammies,
true.
maybe even tucked in. And, of course, I would come, and then it would be upheaval. I would get them out of bed, give them a hug. I'd want to see them, and then I would just get them stimulated, and all of a sudden they weren't ready to go to bed anymore.
Why do dads do that?
I know dads love to do that.
So the kids are all grown up, out of the home at this point. How has life transitioned for you guys, and how has your marriage kind of transitioned into the empty nest years?
Well, I think at first, it was a little bit difficult for me just because, you're so used to nurturing all those years. And I think what happened when they first started leaving the home is I kind of transferred some of that nurturing to him, which he did not appreciate.
Really?
But you've done it for so many years.
You mean
And-
by learning to make grits?
Oh, well.
Oh,
Still not there.
There's instant grits now.
Yes,
Instant grits.
he does not like them though. I have tried those.
It's not gonna cut it.
It's not the same. No.
so
But
you
it-
transferred the nurturing to him, huh?
Right. And so then I realized, no, I'm not his mother. My children are gone. They're grown. I fulfilled that aspect of life of mothering, and I don't need to be mothering him. So, but now it's great. I mean, you have a lot more free time. You have a lot more spendable income.
Yeah, you do.
You don't have to cook as much.
Yes,
We
you don't
look
have to
forward
cook
to
as
that.
much.
Really, this is sounding fantastic.
And now that we, the grandchildren have come into our lives, that's, we spend a lot of time with them. But yeah, we're enjoying it. It was just, right at first I think there was a transition, but now that we're over that, it's great.
Yeah. So kind of moving into more of a conversation just about marriage in general and relating that back to your guys' class of Marriage Matters, how have you seen the challenges that couples face kind of change over the years that you've served in that ministry, or have they changed?
I don't think they've changed much. It's still commitment, It's still fulfilling the vows and the promises that you made to one another. And how do you do that? And I'm a little fearful of this younger generation that's coming up and their ability to commit to things these days. I don't see that they have the fortitude to do that. I often wonder if we ever got into a third world war, where America definitely had to be defended. I'm talking about America being defended. Would we really have the commitment of our citizens and the younger generations to raise their hand and say, I'm going to go, like we did in those that went to World War I, World War II. And I know we're not talking about war here, because and marriage could be war sometimes, but it's a matter of commitment. And where do they learn that? Because you think about what you learn in school, reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, math, all of these things, and we never learn the important things of life. We never have a class on how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, how to be married, how to be parents, how to be a good mom, be a good dad, or learn any of those skills. We never learn those in school, but yet when we're turned 18, we're kicked out into society and we're told, go find somebody and live happily ever after with them, and we don't have any of those tools in our toolbox. And that's a shame that our society misses that most important part. And it's okay to major on arts and crafts and all this other stuff and sports, but those aren't the key things in life. What's key is learning commitment and how to be successful in this area, not just business and your career and all these other things.
Yeah, very good.
When both of you were growing up, don't you think that you were taught those things in your home? I mean, like how to be a wife, how to be a mother. I felt like I learned it from my mother, just spending time with her and watching her, how she did it. From my grandparents, I learned the same things from watching my grandmothers. It seems to me that we've gotten away from that. You know, so many women have had to go back into the workforce, and children are in daycare or they're left at home. And so, in your opinion, you know, what could we do to fix that? How could we change all that?
I think it's a cultural and a social change that has to happen. You know, you think about the shows that were on television back then, Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver and I Love Lucy and all those. You saw the role models being displayed in front of you. In this day and age, it's not there. None of that is there. There's no commitment to one another. Everybody jumps in bed wherever they want to jump in bed with one another, or has an affair at the office, or this partner or that partner, and it's all over the board with that. And you don't learn those things. And I think Debbie learned those things from her family background. I learned it in reverse, if you will, because my family was such in disarray, fussing and fighting and arguing. What I found was that I did not want that in life. I wanted something different. I wanted what it should have been, not what I had to live through. And I find a lot of people get it that way too. So I'm not saying you have to have a perfect mom and dad to learn those things. You could have a dysfunctional family and still learn those things in life. And Debbie, you can speak to that.
I agree with you. Yeah. You know, the commitment thing.
I think another thing that has happened is the shows that we used to watch, like Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet and Lassie or whatever.
Yeah.
The father was definitely the head of the house, but the husband was treated with all kinds of respect.
That's true.
And it seems that we've gotten away from that. You know, most of the time the husband, the father, is treated as just somebody that's goofy.
Yeah.
And doesn't know what he's talking about.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Well, we are about out of time for this show, but we definitely have more questions that we would like to ask Pastor Glen and Debbie, don't we?
So don't
Betty?
go anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Don't go anywhere. And we want to bring you back next week. So everybody who's listening now, please stay tuned and join us again next Wednesday at 1 o'clock to hear part 2 of this interview. Because, again, we've got some more good information coming at you, just talking a little bit more about marriage and a much-needed topic to dive into today. So we want to thank you for joining us today for this Living Well program. And, again, you can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. And don't forget to find us online at katb.org or our Facebook page at Living Well Radio. And be sure to check us out on iTunes at Living Well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.